So here's one of my favorite parts that you tell so well. The role of Hungary, not a country that we think much about, and their president at the time, Miloš Németh, hardly a household name, but you dedicate your book to him, don't you?
I do. I dedicate it to a man named M.N.
I figured it out. It said M.N. and for others who had the courage or something like that.
Well, I did it that because as you say, no one's ever heard of this man, and he was so quiet. He was a technocrat. He didn't fit the model of the flamboyant dissident that we associate with revolutions in Eastern Europe. He wasn't a Lech Wałęsa. He wasn't a poet-playwright like Václav Havel. There weren't marches and revolutions in the streets as in Eastern Germany. Hungary very quietly set about to bring down the communist regime, much like Romania with its economic troubles today, because their economy was collapsing and no one was happy. And they realized that you couldn't fix communism, you had to bust it up.
Didn't the whole dramatic collapse of 1989 begin that summer when Németh opened up a border for people to leave his country?
Well, it was the most amazing thing. Yes, in May, these were very PR-savvy guys, communist as they might have been. They summoned journalists like me and a bunch of international camera crews, BBC, CNN, to the border one day. It's sort of a surprise. And they just said, well, we're going to do something that you don't expect, but you'll really like it. So, of course, we came, and what did they do? They pulled out these huge wire cutters and went at the Iron Curtain, snipping it, cutting it, rolling it up, carting it away in front of the international television cameras. They cut a hole in the Iron Curtain.
And yet you call it in the book, I think, a stealth opening. What was stealth about it?
Well, it was a stealth opening in the sense that, that even understates it. This was a grand conspiracy. Németh wanted to bring down communism. He had to find a way to do it. Every year, East German tourists would come from East Germany to vacation in this beautiful country around the border. It's called Lake Balaton. They had vineyards and good food, all the things that communists couldn't get in other countries. And so they came to camp and hang out. Németh thought that by very publicly on international television cutting a hole in the Iron Curtain, he could induce these people, encourage them to, quote-unquote, escape. And they did this once in May. They did it again in June, once again before the international cameras, and it didn't really work. And so they organized a sort of farce. They called it the Pan-European Picnic. And they got a German brass band. They got food. They announced that they're going to have a picnic right on the border. They distributed flyers to all these tourist camps where the East Germans were and said, come to this picnic, but be careful. Don't stray across the border. There's nothing to stop you from wandering into Austria. And, of course, that day, hundreds of people, quote-unquote, wandered into Austria, where there just happened conveniently to be buses waiting to take them all the way through to Germany the next day. And so you got these weird spectacles of people driving from Berlin to come to this party, going across the border, quote-unquote, escaping, getting on these buses, and by the next day they might be in West Berlin, maybe only a mile from where they started, but a 1,000-mile journey across essentially 2 decades of captivity and communism.
And you write about Németh. It's by the way, we're saying it like Joe Namath, who was a hero of 1969.
Close enough.
Miloš Németh, Nemeth, president of Hungary in 1989. His first encounter with Mikhail Gorbachev, head of the Soviet Union, just before this all happened, and they were each shocked by who the other turned out to be, according to your book. Tell us about that meeting.
Well, this was in the spring of 1989, early March. And when I first met these people, it was December of 88, and I had heard they were forming political clubs. I thought they might evolve into political parties. They were talking about experimenting with free markets. They even, when I was there, started talking about free elections. But what happens if you have an election and the communists lose, I asked. And they said, well, is this the most normal thing in the world? We step down. These are regimes that had kept power for 4 decades without challenge. Well, to find out what would happen if they lost and were going to step down, Miloš Németh went to see Mikhail Gorbachev, the only person who could stop them. And he sat down with him, And he sketched out his ideas for reforming communism, socialism. They wanted to introduce free markets, he said. They wanted these free elections with free parties. And Gorbachev was absolutely appalled. He said, there is only one party, and that's socialism. What do you think you should do? Just turn the government over to ordinary people? Think of the chaos it would result. And Németh said, oh, no, to himself. I'm finished. I'm going to be sent to jail. This is never going to work. This experiment I want to do in democracy is going to fail dismally. And then Gorbachev suddenly looked him in the eye and said, but of course, comrade, that is your decision. And Németh seized this moment and said, Comrade Gorbachev, if we do hold an election and let's say the socialists were indeed to lose and we were to step down, would Moscow intervene as it did in Prague in 1968 or in East Germany or in my own country, Hungary, in 1956? Would you crush this counter-revolution? And Gorbachev looked him in the eye and said, "Niet." And that "niet" meant everything to Németh. That no meant he could go back, he could proceed with free elections and count on the acquiescence, if not the outright support, of the only patron that mattered, Moscow.